And welcome back, rugby fans, to Rugby411. As always, I'm your host. My name is Joshua Shibata, and this is our Week 14 power rankings for Major League Rugby for the 2023 season. We only have 1 month left of the regular season for the 2023 MLR season. It is amazing how quickly this season has gone past. This was a very interesting weekend of football. A huge win for a certain franchise, which kind of fulfills one of my predictions from the very beginning, which I'm very happy about because I'll be honest with you guys, I was getting a little scared with this one team. And then, of course, we had two teams on top of the Western Conference face off against each other with some pretty big results. So, a lot of big things, and the shocking second draw of the season. We'll go over that pretty much right next on the agenda. But again, lots of great stuff. So let's go into our power rankings for this week. So, as I mentioned before, there was a draw, and it involves the number 12 team of the week, the Toronto Arrows, who surprisingly have back-to-back draws. They drew last week, and now they drew again this week. The Toronto Arrows have been struggling this entire season. I guess it's one thing to say, at least they're not losing, per se. Last weekend, they had the chance to, they actually almost lost the game. This weekend, they actually had the chance to win. Unfortunately, the last conversion kick did not make it through. So after tying up the game with Old Glory DC, they were unable to get the victory at the very end. Going over the game, we'll talk a little bit more about Old Glory's side when we get to Old Glory. But Toronto were ahead at halftime. Old Glory came back. If it wasn't for a questionable, if you watch the replay, it was a little questionable how the try was scored by really impressive Rookie of the Year candidate, Deshaun Bowen, who is a current Canadian Sevens team member who has what I like to call that 7 speed. He has been phenomenal with ball in hand. He scored literally the last second try for the Toronto Arrows. Unfortunately, the goal kick conversion did not make it, and therefore Toronto ended up only having the tie with Old Glory. As I've always said before, with a tie, I don't feel comfortable, just like with a draw, moving a team up. Can't move Toronto down anymore, so they stay at number 12. Number 11 team, man, just a team that has been struggling this entire season, along with the Toronto Arrows. The new kids on the block, the Chicago Hounds, still searching for that second win of the season, second win in franchise history. They fall short, way short, to the Seattle Seawolves, 35-13. Granted, it was in Starfire Stadium, which is in Seattle, not an easy place to play and to beat Seattle. But Chicago just, again, it is really, really frustrating and very puzzling to see a team as stacked and as talented as the Chicago roster just not play very well. I mean, again, it is just season 1 for them, but man, that cohesion, you just don't see it. A lot of misplays, a lot of really troublesome lineouts play with the Chicago Hounds, and they just look befuddled. Granted, Seattle is a very strong team, but Chicago just really did not come to play in the game. Therefore, they stay at number 11. Staying at number 10, NOLA Gold. Actually, technically, I'm sorry. NOLA Gold slid down one spot because of the team that was in the number 10 position. But NOLA, if Chicago didn't come to play, NOLA really didn't show up at all, losing to arguably the strongest team in the Eastern Conference by far, the New England Free Jacks. 30-50, a big 5-0 is put on NOLA. Interesting in this game, Damian Stevens was given the kicking duties, even though Rodney Iona, their usual fly half, was able to suit up. Granted, he did just come back from injury, so maybe still whatever is ailing him kind of interfered with his kicking duties. Didn't really make a difference because Damian Stevens was only able to kick once. He got one penalty kick. After that, it was all New England. 8 tries scored against NOLA. NOLA looked again very, very much like the NOLA, which was just sad because, again, beginning the season, NOLA was one of the hottest teams in the league, and they have just flustered and floundered and moved their way down to the bottom 10. Also sliding down a spot, Rugby ATL. Before I go into them, though, I kind of want to just, because I'm going to spoil this, might as well reveal, moving out for the first time, I believe for the first time ever, because this is only their second win in franchise history. The Dallas Jackals move out of the bottom 4 for the first time in our power rankings history to make it to number 8 with their second win of the season, second win in franchise history. Congratulations to the Dallas Jackals, defeating Rugby ATL 27-19. I predicted from the very start that the Dallas Jackals will win at least not only their first win of their franchise, but at least 2 games this season. And I'm telling you guys, it got a little shaky. We only have 4 games left in the season. I didn't know if Dallas was going to really pull it off, but they did. This will come into play when we talk about my Super Brew picks, but felt that Dallas had the chance, and they did. ATL is another team that's been kind of shaky this whole season, and Dallas was able to do it. Dallas was up at the half, 8-7, with a very phenomenal dropkick goal by Martin Elias, and then after that, in the second half, it was all Dallas playing their very hard-hitting Argentinian-style rugby. Shout out to the Dallas Jackal player, Kutse, who got a brace in the game. There was a last-second try by ATL that made the game a lot more closer than it actually was. But in the end, Dallas got their second win of their franchise history, 27-19 over Rugby ATL, allowing them finally move out of the bottom 4 to the number 8 position. We'll see how long they can stay up there, but congratulations to Dallas for their second win of the season and the franchise history. Knew you guys could do it. Moving on. I don't like to move teams that are on a bye, but unfortunately, just because of the way things work with the teams above them, your reigning, defending MLR champions, Rugby New York Ironworkers, even though they did not have a game this week, they were on bye. I had to move them down to number 7 just because of all the things going on with the teams above them, including the fact that the number 6 team, Houston SaberCats, I had to slide them down a couple spots. Unfortunately, they lost to their rivals, the Utah Warriors, in a very exciting back-and-forth game. In the end, Houston fell 28-34. As I mentioned before, it was a back-and-forth game. I think the bigger news, though, is unfortunately for Houston, their very talented fly-half, Dave Coutier, got hurt before the half, before the end of the first half. Don't know how serious the injury was. It took him out of the game. He did not come back in the second half. David Coutier is one of the top point scorers. He is the top point scorer of the season so far. Only player to go over 100 points. Losing him is a huge loss for Houston. Hopefully it's not a serious injury. We'll see if he suits up next week. Also in the game, Utah basically kind of pulled away by the second half. It was very close, but Utah pulled away in the second half, ended up defeating SaberCats 28-34. In the next spot, we mentioned before about ties, was able to keep Old Glory DC in the number 5 spots. They tied up with the Toronto Arrows. That is the 7th tie in all of Major League Rugby history, second tie this season. Toronto Arrows actually has the number 6 and 7 tie of the MLR history. So, interesting fact for them. Again, those facts you can look up MLR stats on the Instagram. Highly recommend. They're a great follow. They cover and keep track of all the different stats that you can think about. It's pretty well done and pretty well kept by MLR stats. Moving up, which is why we kind of moved New York down, moving up to the number 4 spot, the Utah Warriors, who, as I mentioned before, defeat the Houston SaberCats, able to crack themselves into the top 4. Also, a big shout out to Joe Mono for scoring his 38th try. I'm sorry, for scoring his 11th try of the season, allowing him to tie with Rickard Hatting and allowing him to tie with Paul Balacana, who is in the New England Free Jacks. Sorry, that was the next team to move up in the number 3 spots after their trouncing of NOLA. So Paul Balacana, who has a brace in this game, Joe Mono, who scored a try, now all tied with Rickard Hatting, who unfortunately is still injured, and they are all sitting on top of the most tries scored as 11. Again, those facts you can look at MLR stats on the Instagram. Highly recommend. They're a great follow. Mentioned before, the number 2 team, the Seattle Seawolves, who trounced the Chicago Hounds. Sorry about that. In Starfire Stadium. Big shout out to AJ Alatimu, who was a perfect 5 for 5 off the tee and a great source of points for the Seattle Seawolves. And then, of course, at the number 1 position, they didn't have a game, but they still are the most dominant team, I believe, in the league. The San Diego Legion sits at number 1. So, quite a bit of movement this week because of certain wins. Again, congratulations to the Jackals for finally moving out of the bottom 4 after getting their second win of the season, second win in franchise history. SaberCats dropped down to be replaced by the Utah Warriors. New England still sitting on top in the top 4. Dominant team in the Eastern Conference. But your Western Conference is still technically a 4-team race. San Diego is kind of leading ahead. So is Seattle. It's really going to come down to Houston and Utah possibly fighting over that last playoff spot. And that is our power rankings. Let's move on to our Super Brew results for our Super Brew MLR Rugby411 pick'ems. And I gotta say, it was a struggle this season for myself, but let's see the result. Boom! And finally, first time this season, yours truly gets the golden cap. Helps that I was one of only 2 players to pick the Dallas Jackals winning their game that allowed me to get a perfect score, sit on top of this week's picks with 6 points. The only other person to also pick the Dallas Jackals was my boy Tex, who was not last this place. So good job for you, Tex. Kudos for you. Thank you for believing in my pick and supporting with me. I believe we're the only 2 players this week to pick the Dallas Jackals to win. That made a big difference for me. Also made a big difference for Tex. Coming in number 2 is my good buddy, USA League and Union Rugby fan, Coop. Good job, buddy. You're still in the hunt for the number 1 spot overall. You're number 2 with 5 points. And then coming in third, we have 5 players that tied with 4.5, including BT Woodrow, the reviewer 812, our reigning defending champion from last season, all day long, Jahigo, and my buddy Frisco, Flame Frisco. Great job, brother. I believe this is probably the highest you've ever been, maybe ever in our pick'ems, but God bless you for constantly picking. I know it hasn't been easy for you either. But hey, great job this week. Unfortunately, the last bottom person in the league for the Wood Spoon this week was CrossFox. Sorry about that, buddy. Let's look at the overall top of the league. Nothing has really changed just because, no offense, but a lot of you guys did not do as well this week. So sitting still at top is MSDRFC 83. With 91.33 points. SD Cal Guy right behind them. Second, 85.08. John Hawkins, 83.33. Jahaigo, I'm hoping I'm saying that correctly, 81.99. And right behind him, Harry, 80.66. And Coop, USA League and Union Rugby fan, right behind him in 6th place. At the bottom is still Brandon B-Dog, just because he's pretty much given up playing, unfortunately. So those are our pick'em results. These are our rankums. Again, very proud of my power rankings and very proud that Dallas Jackals were able to pull off that second win like I predicted. Now, I don't know if they'll win anymore. Again, they've been playing really well. It's just that, just sometimes they get the bad breaks. Sometimes just other teams are a little bit more talented. But the Dallas Jackals have been showing a lot of improvement. Still a little befuddled about the Chicago Hounds. Don't know quite what to say about them. On top of the league, it's going to be interesting to see which teams end up making playoffs, if it's Houston or Utah, and of course, if New York is able to scramble their way back into the playoff picture. So, that's my video. As always, I appreciate your guys' support. Let me know what you think about my power rankings. Who do you guys put down for your power rankings? And as always, thank you very much for watching my video, and I hope to see you on the pitch.